We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show and we do take in your questions. So anonymously, you can send in your questions. We don't need to know your name or where you're asking from. Send in your questions on the WhatsApp email address. You can call us into the live show 0203-515-0199. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section and inshallah the technical team will be able to send them to me on my handy iPad here. And inshallah myself and the Sheikh will be able to answer your questions. I'm your host Hussein Shia and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah.
How's the fast going?
Alhamdulillah.
Almost there Sheikh, almost there. Got a bit more to go. Sheikh, before we answer the questions, we always have a short dua that you go through and then explain. So over to you Sheikh. Tafadhal, bismillah.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Part of the dua in the famous dua of Abi Hamza al-Thamali rahimahullah by Imam al-Sajjad Zain al-Abidin salamullah alayh, which is recited in the Sahar of the month of Ramadan, and especially on the nights of Qadr and the rest of the nights, coming nights. The dua states here, تتحبب إلينا بالنعم ونعارضك بالذنوب. That, oh Allah, you kindly send us your blessings, your ni'mah, from food, drink, clothing, wealth, everything. These are all ni'amullah azza wa jal. Decent job, for example, family, wife, and so forth, husband. That you send all these ni'am for us. وَنُعَارِضُكَ بِالذُّنُوبِ. But in reply, we would, in opposition, in other words, نُعَارِضُكَ, in opposition, we would commit sins. Allahu Akbar. So that's why I always say that this month is the best month for the individual to seek Allah's forgiveness, ask Allah's forgiveness in this holy month. Then it says, خَيْرُكَ إِلَيْنَا نَازِلٌ. Your khair, your goodness, your good fortune, your blessings descend from the heavens on us. وَشَرُّنَا إِلَيْكَ صَاعِدٌ. Allahu Akbar. And our evil acts and deeds and thoughts and so on, and sins would go up. So you descend to us your blessings, your khair, your goodness, and we send to you back, na'udhu billah, the evil acts and sins and wrongdoings and faults and flaws and so forth. So see how the Imam sallallahu alayhi speaks to Allah azza wa jalla. Of course he wants to teach us. The Imam's ma'soom, he's infallible. But he wants to teach us how to talk to Allah azza wa jalla, how to invoke Allah azza wa jalla, how to ask Allah's forgiveness in this holy month, in this way. That we send back to you our sins and you send back to us your khair, your ni'mah, your blessings, your khairat. So let's try to recite these ad'iyah inshaAllah, even with translation, with sharh, there's a sharh, and to understand each line as much as we can. Try to recite few lines every night. You don't have to finish the whole dua. The dua takes about 40-50 minutes, but try to recite 2 or 3 lines a night with the sharh, with the translation, to understand what the Imam sallallahu was trying to teach the Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the believing individuals, on how to invoke Allah azza wa jal, and how to ask Allah's forgiveness in this holy month.
Ahsan. Sheikh, now let's go from the questions. Is it mandatory for the eldest son to offer the qadha of the obligatory acts his deceased father missed during his lifetime?
Yes, the eldest son is obliged to and mandatory for him to offer the qadha of the salah in which his father couldn't perform in his lifetime and he passed away. Then it becomes wajib on the eldest son to perform the qadha, and not only qadha of the fast, the salah as well. So salah and fasting as well. Ayatollah Shirazi would also add that similarly that would also apply as obligatory precaution to the mother as well. So if the mother passed away as well and she had qada salawat and fast qada to be performed by the eldest son as wajib ihtiyati. Of course, it differs with other maraj and opinion, but with regards to the mother, the Sayyid says this, yes, that's as obligatory precaution to be performed as well by the eldest son. So both parents, in other words.
I see. Also, Sheikhna, can we travel in the month of Ramadan, especially to avoid fasting?
Well, to travel for a reason, let's say, a given reason, that should be fine. But what is discouraged and makruh is to avoid fasting. So you run away from the month. Let's say it's too hot, or whatever.
The hours are long.
Long hours, ahsant. Then you try to avoid fasting by going somewhere else to break your fast, for example. That is discouraged. But you know, if somebody has a given reason, you know, traveling, that should be fine.
I see. I see. From the viewers, Sheikhna, I think this one's from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can I ask if we're allowed to use gemstones for healing purposes? Gemstones are these special stones that you get, emerald, ruby, and others, including aqiq as well, and they use it for, you know, for energy and so forth like that, creating a mood. Is this acceptable in Islam?
There are experts with this field in which they know these details about these gemstones and benefits of these stones, and they have even a book that tells you each its benefits. Seems to be there's no issue with it, especially for curing and healing and so forth. Should be fine.
So, okay, the following questions are from YouTube. My question is that when is Asr and Isha namaz? So I heard from a Shia scholar it is more blessings to pray separate. If you can do, what time are Asr and Isha times?
As I've said before, that in order to pray them separately, you have to sit down in your sajjada and perform the mustahabbat until the Asr time. But to leave the Dhuhr, you pray Dhuhr and you leave and come back after 2-3 hours to do the Asr, what we encourage is to pray them together. Jam' bayna salatain. And as I've said before, that even that Hussein narrate that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prayed, united those two salah, Dhuhr and Asr, without any cause and reason. Because usually if there's rain, if there's trouble, they join it. But without any reason, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he joined them without being rain or trouble and so forth. So that's why we join. That's what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So, and the Habib alayhi salam. So, joining is the option in which we are following now at the moment. If you want to separate, it's up to you. But as I've said, mustahabbat should be performed within that time period, which is going to be, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours, less or more.
I see. Another one here from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. Should we pray Maghrib and then open fast, or open fast with family then pray namaz? Because all my family is all waiting to open their fast. So what is better? Should I open the fast with family or should I pray namaz?
Well, the ulama mentioned that, of course, it's preferable for the one to pray first and then open the fast after the salah, Maghrib and Isha. But if somebody is waiting for you, of course, the one should basically, better to open the fast with the individuals who are waiting for you, especially the family members. So yes, open the fast with them, and then go back to salah and pray.
I see. From YouTube, if someone has a wet dream and becomes a junub, but he takes a ghusl janabi while fasting, is his fast batil?
No, as mentioned before, if wet dream, if it's, let's say, the one wakes up after the Fajr time, or let's say daytime, in the morning, or late morning, for example, he wakes up. In this case, the fasting is valid. There's no issue with it. He goes to the bathroom for the ghusl, and his fast is in place. There's no issue with it.
From WhatsApp, Sheikhna, what are the rules for fasting the whole month of Ramadan without any qada, completing the whole month?
Without any qada, basically, you shouldn't be a pregnant woman or breastfeeding woman. You shouldn't be an elderly individual who can't fast and can't bear fasting.
They ask for the reward for having
The rewards.
for fasting the whole month and not having any qadha prayer, qadha fast, praying the whole 29.
I see.
Keeping the whole 29 days.
There are mentioned for every day, if the one fasts the first day, second day, I'm not sure if each day has its own reward. It's mentioned that if you fast on the 16th, 15th, 17th, and so forth, there are rewards for each day. One should refer back to the books and see those narrations with this regard.
From YouTube, Sheikh now, Assalamu alaikum. Is it correct to celebrate the death of Aisha and people say Farhat al-Hasan? Sheikh, in general, celebrating the death of the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, is this encouraged in Islam?
Of course, we have this in anyhow to celebrate the death of the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, in which Ahlul Bayt, when, for example, they would hear that one of their enemies was killed, they would be joyful in somehow. Especially Qatalatu Hussein alayhi salam, who were killed by Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, which pleased, in terms of, brought some kind of joy to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the women and the children, and somehow. So that is the sign of the collapse of the tyrant who demolished this religion partly, or mostly, who deviated the nation and the community as a result. So likewise, when Saddam was removed, we were happy and joyful that this tyrant, after 23-4 years of dictatorship and killing his own people and killing the Shia of Ahlul Bayt, specifically in Karbala and Najaf, now he has been removed from the power, and then he was hanged to Jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir. So yes, the mu'min ويفرح المؤمنون, that the mu'mins would be joyful in this situation.
I see. Hassan. Sheikh, I've got more questions coming in from YouTube. There are so many du'as to pray, it gets complicated. So could you tell me main and best du'a to pray during the month of Ramadan? Jazakallah khair. I would say, Sheikh, du'a iftitah is the one that's recited just for Ramadan every day and so forth. Would you recommend that du'a, or is there something more powerful for Ramadan?
Definitely du'a iftitah is very powerful. I mean, if the one can not just to read it, but to also ponder and reflect on each line of this du'a. And I'll try to bring some of the lines of the du'a and explain it. It's great, maybe after du'a iftitah, if someone has more time in the saha time to recite du'a Abi Hamza al-Thamali. Great du'a as well, with great meanings, which reminds us of the hereafter, of the qabr, of the moment of death, and how we will be taken to the rituals of the death, the washing and the kafan and everything. It's all mentioned there, how the one should remind himself and remember those moments of death. So yes, du'a iftitah and du'a Abi Hamza al-Thamali.
For questions from previous days, Sheikh, which we didn't answer, and I've got plenty of them. Let's start from here. What kind of punishment on the Day of Judgment do you get for celebrating Christmas holidays? That's on WhatsApp. Celebrating other people's celebrations of, non-Islamic holidays. What kind of punishment do you get on the Day of Judgment? Initially,
those punishments with Allah Azza wa Jalla. We don't have that knowledge of ghaib to know exactly what kind of punishment. Yes, the ulama would say, for example, if this type of celebration is mixed with haram, encourages or promotes others' faiths and wrong beliefs, of course that's not permissible in this case. Promoting others' faith and aqidah, in this case it's not permissible. They would issue the hukum that is haram or halal or wajib. The type of the punishment or the iqab is with Allah Azza wa Jalla. And don't forget that Allah is merciful, Arhamur Rahimin. One can seek forgiveness if such acts were, taken place. Haram was with these celebrations, let's say dancing, music, and so forth. So one can seek Allah's forgiveness and not to do it again.
Really interesting question here from YouTube. Where did Latmiya come from? Is it found in hadiths? That's on WhatsApp.
You see, we have, yes, that the women of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in aftermath of Ashura, that they beat their cheeks, latamat al-khudud. So they beat their cheeks. And of course, the Husseini Azza in overall, the bloodlettings and so forth, all these rituals, the ulama would have how can I say, basis or qaida in which that whatever comes under the revival or the greatening the sha'ar of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that will be allowed within the boundary of the Sharia. There's no haram committed. So be it latum, be it zanjir, be it bloodletting and so forth. That is within that boundary of the Sharia. That should be fine. That would greatening the sha'ar of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That should be fine. So they have a base for that. Otherwise. We can say the same thing with regards to the golden domes of Ahlul Bayt. Where does it come from? Was a golden dome on, let's say, in Najaf or Karbala 1,000 years ago, for example?
No, not even on the Rasulullah.
Was there any golden or silver darih in the chamber on the graves 1,000 years ago, for example? It was wooden box, mainly after the Shahada of Muhammad, wooden box. So, all these things, because they tend to greatening and glorifying the state of that imam or that sha'ir, of that ritual, then these are all allowed. They're all part of the sha'ir, comes part of the sha'ir of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, sha'ar Hussein salamullah alayh. That golden dome or that silver chamber and so forth. Otherwise, if you go back, you won't find any 14th century ago or 13th century ago. There wasn't such a golden, such a silver chamber in that time.
More questions coming in. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
I have read that some people fast 6 days in Shawwal after Eid al-Fitr. Is this correct? Thank you so much.
Yes, there's something mentioned about istihbab of fasting after the month of Ramadan, starting from the 2nd of Shawwal, not the 1st. First is haram. You can't fast on the 1st of Shawwal, Eid al-Fitr. From 2nd to, I think, 5 to 6 days, yes. To the 7th maybe, 6th, 7th, yeah. 6 days after Shawwal. That is mentioned, recommended.
MashaAllah. Also, Sheikhna, is Eid al-Qadir more significant and better than Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha?
You see, Eid al-Qadir is Eid al-Wilaya, Eid al-Imamah, Eid of the fundamentals of the Aqeedah, of the belief. Eid al-Fitr and Adha is to do with what? With the Ahkam. With the Ahkam. It's to do with Eid of the Ahkam. It's not the Aqeedah like Tawheed, Nubuwwah, Imamah. Eid al-Qadir, Eid al-Imamah. We have to glorify and greaten this Eid as much as we can, because that is the establishment of the true Islam, the true Aqeedah. And then, of course, others would come. Eid al-Adha would come, other Ahkam and Sharia from Ahlul Bayt would come eventually. So you have to establish the foundation of the Aqeedah, Tawheed, Nubuwwah, Imamah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That's what we try our best to, inshallah, to celebrate Eid al-Qadir even greater than Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr.
Ahsantum. Sheikhna, what time did you say is best time to pray Dua Iftitah and Dua Abu Hamza Thamani?
Dua al-Iftitah after your iftar and Salat al-Maghrib and Isha, you straight start with Dua Iftitah. Abu Hamza Thamani, you start it in the Sahar time. So let's say 1, 2, 3 hours before the Fajr prayers, for example.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can you please tell us about backbiting in detail? It's asking from Sayyid Sistani, inshallah, that's from YouTube. But I'm sure, because it's just backbiting is more to do with akhlaq than fiqh. Can you please explain a little bit in detail about backbiting and the punishments of backbiting? One could call it a disease in our community.
In overall, backbiting is one of the sins, definitely. And to backbite means to tell someone else that the one you're mentioning his name, he is not interested, he doesn't like this to be exposed. You're exposing this individual's secret life, for example, or something, that he's got this type of illness that he's hiding. For example, he's got such relationships. He doesn't want to show, he doesn't want to basically people to be known, but you expose it. That is backbiting, that he doesn't like to be known. So that's backbiting, in which one should avoid. This description to the ghiba, that would you like to see somebody someone eating the flesh of his brother? ميتا فكرهتموه. So one should avoid backbiting by keeping quiet. That's the best thing, is to keep quiet. Or if there's a majlis or gathering, someone is in backbite, you just leave that majlis and don't stay with them, because the haram would also overwhelms that individual who's listening to the backbite. So best thing to keep quiet, as-samt, as they say in some narrations, as-samt, sukut, and not to backbite people, unless you have something to say good, hadith, riwayah, Quran, admonishment. Fine, speak, talk.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. My question is as follows: what is the difference between spirit and soul? As-salama. I think it's the same thing, isn't it? The ruh.
Yeah, we have to see the meaning of the spirit and soul. Is it the same thing or different meanings? Because you have nafs, al-insan, nafs, and you have the ruh.
Yeah.
So the ruh is the spirit. When the one dies, they would basically, this ruh would depart this body to the next world, and the body would remain in this world until the judgment, in which would be resurrected with the ruh on the day of judgment. So it depends. The terms, basically, one should refer back to the dictionaries to see what exactly meaning the soul and the spirit, are they the same or different? You have nafs, you have ruh. Is it nafs and ruh, and so forth?
From yesterday, Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. 2 questions here.
Yes.
Why are we so focused on the imams and not just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And also, why is the Sunni azan different from the Ahlul Bayt? Right, let's start with the easy one, which is, why is the Sunni adhan different from the Ahlul Bayt, Sheikhna?
Because they did not follow Ahlul Bayt's thoughts and school and method, and they went with the school of the Sahaba, which is different than Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That's why they rejected Ahlul Bayt and they stick with the Sahaba, sadly, in which the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in their books, in their narrations, stated that I leave 2 weighty things, 2 necessary things, the Book of Allah and my progeny, my Ahlul Bayti. They shouldn't leave Ahlul Bayt, ignore them, and follow some other people. So they have went, and chose this adhan for them, and even the adhan was added and taken away from the adhan. Hayya ala khair al-amal, adana as-salah khair min al-nawm, which wasn't in the adhan. So that's a problem. Yeah. When you change the direction of aqeedah or belief, of course you're going to have addition and subtractions from that aqeedah and belief. Exactly what happened to the Christians and other religions, that they added to Bible, Matthew,
and the second part, the first part of the question was, why do you focus so much on the imams? Why not just focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone?
Allah Azza wa Jal focused on the prophets of Allah in His holy book. How many stories of Musa mentioned? How many times the name of Musa mentioned? Yusuf is mentioned, Isa is mentioned, Ibrahim is mentioned. Allah Azza wa Jal wants to basically raise the issue that they are the representing Allah's message on earth. So follow them. وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةَ, again, the ayah, that seek means towards Allah Azza wa Jal. And likewise, their vicegerents of the prophets, Awsiya al-Anbiya, same thing. You have to follow them because they are the continuation of the message of the prophets and the prophets, alayhimus salam. So you have to follow the vicegerents of the prophets as well, and not to neglect their vicegerents, like Bani Israel when they neglected Harun of Musa, and they made their own calf, and they worship that calf, made them from gold and so forth.
I see. Sheikhna from YouTube, what if you're okay, so this is about ghiba that we were talking about discussing. What if you are talking behind someone's back to warn someone that he's a bad person, or to help someone about it? What if you might have bad influence on someone, so that's why you talked behind him?
You see, sometimes we have something known as that some people, they are causing corruption, they are, let's say, fasiq, they drink openly alcohol and so forth. So sometimes you have to warn people from those individual deviants who deviate people, for example. There are exceptions with this regard, that la ghibata ala al-fasiq. The fasiq has no ghiba. He's openly committing those sins and he's encouraging others And sometimes it becomes like nahy an munkar. This is a munkar. You have to tell people that this individual is deviant, is kada, kada, kada. Avoid him, inform him, and so forth. So there are exceptions with this regard, that there's no ghiba on specific individuals when it comes to isha'at al-fahisha, is to spread corruption, for example, or inhiraf, and so forth.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ya Sheikh, is it mustahab to pray Salatul Dhuhr alongside Salatul Asr, or is it better to pray them separately? Likewise, Salatul Maghrib and Salatul Isha, is it better to pray them both together or pray them separately?
As I've said before, we pray them all joint, and that's what we have to do basically. As I've said, if you want to pray it separately, you have to fill this gap by doing tasbih, dhikr, and so forth on the Salatul Asr. And as I mentioned before, just moments ago, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ in the books of Al-Sunnah, that he joined those two salah without any reason, without the issue of rain or trouble. So we have to follow Rasulullah ﷺ with this regard as well. Why should we insist on something that was before and now? We join, khalas, we have to join the salah. And Ahlul Bayt alayhim are the great examples.
Sheikh, now we have a call on the line, inshallah we're able to get through to them. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, brother. I hope you're good. I hope your fast is going good, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so my question is mostly about, so I'm thinking about becoming a scholar or like a sheikh or someone who can teach and spread the message of Islam to people. And I'm wondering how can I go about that, because when in Iraq I was looking forward, and I'm from the UK, you see, and there's no UK English speakers. So what's the best course of action for me to do that and to spread the message and to go in that route of Islam? So if you could help me in that would be really helpful. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much, brother, for your question. Can I ask the technical team for this brother's number to be taken down so we can contact him privately, because we do have a lot of contacts in Iran and in Iraq as well, and maybe we can try and help you there. But for now, Sheikhna, for this brother to learn a bit about Islam, to give back to the community, and to give lessons and so forth, how does one go about learning and teaching?
Yes, basically, if you want to, for example, learn or to become a doctor, and you need, latest or researches that was made scientifically, for example, you have to come to the West. You have to come to the UK, study science and medicine and so forth, or to America. The same applies to the Islamic knowledge and the studies, in which you have to go back to the Hawza in Iran or Iraq for the purpose of studying Islamic law or Islamic studies with regards to being a future alim, inshallah, preaching, teaching and lecturing. You have to go to the centers of those, the seminaries or the hawzat, in which they would teach you the basics. At least you start with the basics, muqaddimat of the hawza. And of course, on top of that, you have to do a lot of research, a lot of revision, a lot of readings. Hawza study is not enough. You have to make sure that you spend the rest of the other times with research, your own research. Likewise, in university, when you go, you just attend 3-4 days sessions, lectures, and you do your own research. You go back, and you come with a dissertation or thesis at the end, 60-70 pages of your research. So you have to make sure that you find a suitable place. I don't know if it's Iraq, Iran, other places suitable for that individual to stay there for, let's say, at least 2-3 years, and then within that time you have to make sure that you do a lot of revision and readings as well, because it's not just a basic ilm al-sarf or ilm al-nahu and Arabic syntax or grammar. It's beyond that. You have to read a lot of books. You have to read Kitab al-Kafi, for example, understand the hadith. And to understand the hadith, you need to study ilm al-hadith and ilm al-diraya, ilm al-rijal, and so forth. So it's a compilation and a collection of many books and syllabus and knowledge to be able, inshallah, to be a speaker, inshallah, in the future in English, inshallah. Look forward for that, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sheikh, now we're going to go to a short break, inshallah. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of
Is it
scholars at
permissible to
home.
plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the
established
graves?
based on peace and
Is it permissible
non-violence?
to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it
individuals?
permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there an
countries?
issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. And yes, here on Ahkam SOS, we have many ways you can send in your questions. You can send it via WhatsApp, email address, give us a telephone call 0235150199. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section and inshallah, the technical team will be able to send your questions on my handy iPad here and inshallah I'll be able to ask the Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikhna, I have read the story of Imam Hussein's head being taken care of by a Christian priest after the Battle of Karbala. He took it from the Umayyad army for the night and he turned it into a moment after taking care of it. How true is this story?
These stories in overall mentioned in the books of the history. As I've said, many of the lecturers would mention this story in their musibah, in their na'i. They mention this on the days of Ashura or after Ashura, that this priest, he takes the head, he washes it, he speaks to that head, and then he becomes, he gives the shahada and becomes Muslim and devotes in the for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, serving Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam afterwards. So, as I've said, if you want to scrutinize and search for every incident historically, you will end up removing 3/4 of the history from our books and even from the Ahlul Sunnah's books, because most of these stories are mentioned by, as I've said, either from the enemy side or by others, and we can't really establish every story's certain sahih chain of narrators. That's why the ulama would keep as it is, and most of the ulama would accept these stories mentioned, and of course they would put the efforts in the ahadith which are about the fiqh, the halal and the haram, and they would check every single narrator, ilm al-rijal applied here as well, to make sure that they give the fatwa with a strong base and evidence for the history, for the even for the a'mal, ziyarat mentioned in the books of the dua, ad'iyah for example. There's no such efforts needs to be made in terms of these chain of narrators. We take it due to the dalil we have or the evidence which says, التسامح في أدلة السنن, that they would be lenient with those adillah and they would not take these into more consideration. Yes, with regards to the fiqh, yes, they would do so.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Alaikum assalam.
Why is the fast before Dhuhr valid, but after Dhuhr invalid? I think this is traveling and coming back and so forth.
And these are based on the ulama's, fatawa. We have to see if they have a valid, for example, hadith with this regard, for example. It's not from their pockets. There should be evidence for that.
Why have the time here a row? And why can't I fast during traveling if it is not a problem for me? May Allah bless you.
Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving you a concession, a discount. Why do you reject this concession discount? That in travel, shorten your salah and do not fast. That's it. Enjoy your life. Why do you want to basically fast in travel, for example, or pray in full? Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving you that concession. So let's take it and not to ignore these ahkam. These are ahkam Allah Azza wa Jalla, in which it's all to do with bringing some kind of happiness to the people in this world and the hereafter, inshallah.
More questions coming in, Sheikhna. Are you allowed to continue fasting after forgetting it twice as an adult? I think they're meaning if you were fasting and maybe you ate something and you forgot that you were fasting, if you do that twice, can you continue to fast? Or
No,
is it
basically,
just
if you forgot your fasting and you ate or drink, the fast is valid, is in its place. So you just continue fasting after you were, aware of the situation and realize that you're in the fasting period. So of course, you have to abstain from eating, drinking, and continue. But whatever you had should be fine because you forgot or unaware of the situation.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
As-salam.
Which marja said that it's haram to serve food during the daytime of Ramadan? Of Ramadan, really.
Ayatollah Sistani mentions that for the non-Muslims it's fine, but not for the Muslims. Ayatollah Shia says yes, it's not permissible to be served in the time. And this is not just one or two marja. Most of the maraja would agree upon the prohibition of serving food in the daytime of the month of Ramadan, because the obligation is to fast. So why do you encourage others to break their fast?
Ahsan. Sheikhna, for someone who may be in prison or in a cave away from sunlight, how does that person fast? How does that person pray? God forbid anyone. I mean, that's torture to be taken away from sunlight. But if you're in a situation where there's no sunlight, maybe you're in a submarine, really below the ocean, how does one pray? How does one fast when there's no daylight?
Yes, initially one should find some kind of signs. If you can, trust the guards, the prison guards, for example, they can ask them, for example, and to ask for the time of the salah, for example, the sunrise, sunset, and so forth. Yes, it's very difficult, to be honest, in this situation. In some cases, one should fast, and then sometimes you never know in which month you are. Is it Ramadan? Is it Shawwal? Is it Muharram? You never know. So there's an in-detailed ahkam with this regard, that you fast the whole month to see if it's, if it's actually fits in this holy month or not. So there are more ahkam with this regard and details. But anyhow, one can begin by finding some signs, as I've said, from the guards and other means, other prisoners, for example, if they have access to the outside world.
Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. Where did Latmiya originate? What do the narrations say? We've mentioned this a little bit, but please, Sheikhna. Latmiyat, one could argue it goes all the way back to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, when he received news of his son being killed. They said he slapped his thigh so much that there was bone left, that there was no meat.
As I've said before, that even if there wasn't something in the time of the Ma'soom alayhi salam, as I've said, like golden domes of the Imams of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam, that doesn't mean that we can't have these. They weren't in the time of the Ma'soom alayhi salam. Was there a golden dome in Karbala in the time of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam or Imam Sadiq alayhi salam? It was just a wooden box, as I've said. Or let's say clay and so forth. So that doesn't mean that the Imams made the haram, or they're not happy with this issue to have a golden dome over their maraqid, for example. So even latmiyat, even if there was no latmiya in that time, that doesn't mean that latm was not allowed now. It's not allowed now. As I've said, these things can be expanded. That's why we have ijtihad, that one can extract the hukum and work in line with the latest developments and technology and the moving of today's world and economy and so forth. That's why we have questions about the Bitcoin. Is it halal or haram, for example? These are new issues, new masail, in which the marja' comes and tries to bring the qawa'id and the bases and to apply them on this type of trade and such like. So yes, anything that will be known as sha'air of Hussein alayhi salam, which is not against the haram, why not? Crying, chest beating and so forth, should be no issue with it.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. I was in a lecture and I heard that the head of Abu Abdullah Hussein, once it was on the spear, was reciting Quran constantly. Is this true?
Yes, the narration mentions that one of the Prophet's ashab, Zayd bin Arqam, he witnessed this incident, that he heard the Imam's was reciting this ayah from from Surah Al-Kahf, and the Ashab al-Raqim, أو عجبتم أن I can't remember exactly, but one of the ayat of the Surah Al-Kahf that with this regard, yes. So basically, yes, he's a Sahabi, he narrated this incident and it's mentioned.
Ahsan. Sheikh, we've got a phone call, inshallah, we're able to help our viewers inquire, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, you're live on Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you?
Alaikum
I'm
assalam
very
wa
well, thank you. How are you,
rahmatullah.
brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you keeping this Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. With your du'as, inshallah, we'll be fine, no worries. Your question, please, for the Sheikh.
Yes, so my question is, obviously during Ramadan we are fasting, but obviously we're in the time where coronavirus is still here. If I were to take a COVID test, and obviously, you know, it requires me to put it in my nose and obviously put it at the back of my throat, does this invalidate my fast?
Excellent question. Thank you very much, brother. The Sheikh will answer it now. Sheikh, I'm sure you're very familiar with the COVID testing. Swabs up your nose and, you know, on the throat and so forth. Does this break your fast?
If there's no substance within that, the stick, which is put inside the throat or the mouth, it's just cotton, isn't it? Just
Yeah,
cotton.
it's cotton bud.
Should be fine. There's nothing goes through the throat. But the problem is, the major problem is when the one puts one, let's say, inside the mouth and he brings it out, you can't put it back again inside the mouth. So that counts as a new liquid or moisture. You can't put it back again. So only to be used once, and that's it.
I see. So once it's gone in, that's it. You can't
That's
put
it.
it back in again. You'll have to get a separate swab.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Another question here from one of our viewers. I am married since 5 months and we have been trying to have a child without success. If my husband, the physician, has work obligations after Maghrib, can we break the fast with intimacy for the purpose of childbearing on the day when I know I am ovulating? Oh, difficult question there, Sheikhna. As in, I can't see if you're fasting and you're trying to ovulate, you're trying to have a baby, but you're fasting, it's Ramadan, they won't have an opportunity after Maghrib Adhan. Are they allowed to do it during the daytime?
No, they can't. Otherwise, they're going to break their fast, and there's a qada, and I think penalty as well for breaking the fast. But in anyhow, yes, there's a penalty for that, kafara, for breaking the fast in this way. But what they can do, as I've said before, it's not a loophole, but as a solution, they can travel in the morning outside their city, break their fast outside, because you can travel. As I've said, unless for the one who wants to run away from, which is makruh, run away from fasting, break their fast. In this situation, they have broken their fast now, so they are musafir now, in trouble. But even that is not really encouraged in the month of Ramadan. So eating too much, for example, that relationship, best thing to leave it at night. I know that they're busy at night, work and so forth, but they try to take a day off or 2 days off with this regard and try to find a suitable time.
Okay, Sheikh, some interesting questions coming in. Does being gay break my fast?
That's actually one of the major sins, of course. We've said this, to break your fast with haram, such as masturbation, that would result in multiple penalties or jama' kafara. So that's a problem. So
what if someone refrains from the actions? So this person is a homosexual. They followed the ahkam of the fast. They will before Fajr they will eat. They will pray Fajr. They will throughout the whole day they won't eat anything. They won't have any intimacy. Nothing like that. Stay away from food. Stay away from drink, so forth. Do their obligations and so forth, and then open their fast at Maghrib time. Is this for them? Is the fast acceptable?
Of course, if they follow these rulings of and avoid invalidating the fast, mubtalat as-sawm, that should be fine. But still, you are in that state of sin somehow in this relationship, even if there's no physical attachment or relationship in that period, but still you are in that. It's like somebody who is, the lady who doesn't wear hijab and she fasts. You are in that situation of committing the sin every day, every moment when you're outside. People are seeing you, for example, and you're fasting. So I don't know how this can be related. It's very difficult. But Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who would basically, inshallah, guide them all, and basically to come to the terms of, let's worship Allah Azza wa Jal accordingly and with full submission. That's what Islam is. Islam taslim, full submission, without neglecting any hukum, to be a complete Muslim, a complete believer in Allah Azza wa Jal.
Sheikh, final question before we end the show, and that is, if I want to have intercourse with my wife twice in the same night, is it required to perform ghusl before the second intercourse? So, you go to your wife and then you're going to go again, but do you need to perform ghusl before you go again?
Yeah, it's better. It's makruh to go again without the ghusl. So first do the ghusl and go back.
And that's for both male and female? They both have to do ghusl?
Ala kulli hal, they have to do ghusl because that's for the second time. If it's, what I mean is they have finished everything, so they want to do again, for example. It depends really what sessions are they. Sometimes the same session. So we can't really speak more than that in this holy month. So we'll leave it for now, inshallah. But anyhow, if somebody become junub in this way and they want to do again, it's better for them to do ghusl again and then go back in overall. Let's say somebody who was, mainly the mas'ala is about somebody who had a wet dream, for example, and then he wanted to approach his wife in this situation. That would be mustahab, or to do the ghusl and then go back to the wife, or for example makruh to approach that individual. As I've said, with this regard, we have to see the scenario in detail, which we can't really explain that much.
Final thoughts, Sheikh, now before we go off here.
Yes, we have the nights coming, inshallah. Let's start to read the long ad'iyah, inshallah. Dua bi Hamza Thamali. We have dua Jawshan for the month for the nights of Qadr, inshallah. We try to, inshallah, recite them, even if you can't recite the whole dua, partially, but with reflection, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If we didn't answer your question, we do apologize, because we get loads of questions coming in, and inshallah we'll roll them over to the next episode, which will be tomorrow at 5:10 here on Imam Hussein TV3, Sky Channel 789. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of
Is it
scholars
permissible
at
to
home.
plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the
established
graves?
based on peace and
Is it
non-violence?
permissible
to
collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there
countries?
an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh and Ramadan Kareem. The Imam Hussein Charity will be running its food basket campaign again this year, giving you the opportunity to help destitute and impoverished families throughout the whole of Iraq and Afghanistan. Each food basket contains essentials such as rice, flour, dried lemons, tea, fruits and vegetables, oil, tomato paste, dates, and much, much more. Each basket is £25 and can feed a family of four for up to 10 days. You can feed a family of four for the whole of Ramadan for only £75. You can donate via bank transfer, PayPal or visit us at www.imamhusseincharity.com.